The town of Darkwood, nestled deep within the state of Oregon, USA, is a place where peace and tranquility seem to drape over every old house and narrow street. With a population of only a few thousand, everyone here knows each other, or at least they think so. On September 15th, 2018, this town became infamous throughout the state, not for its calmness, but for a brutal and mysterious murder. The Jones family, once regarded as the perfect model in the community, suddenly found themselves at the center of the darkest scandal Darkwood had ever witnessed. Sophia Jones, a successful fashion designer, lived with her husband William Jones, a powerful businessman, and together they had become the epitome of success and happiness in the eyes of many. But when David Garcia, a young and ambitious lawyer, moved to Darkwood, no one could have predicted that his arrival would forever alter the lives of the Jones family. Secrets began to surface, and relationships that once seemed solid were tested by temptation and betrayal. From that point on, Darkwood was no longer the safe and peaceful place everyone thought it was. Amid the glittering lights of that fall's charity gala, Sophia Jones and David Garcia locked eyes for the first time. No one could have guessed that, beneath the chandeliers and the polite pleasantries, a forbidden spark had ignited between two seemingly unrelated individuals. David, with his handsome appearance and the confidence of a promising young lawyer, quickly captured Sophia's attention. And although Sophia, as a successful and married woman, repeatedly reminded herself that she shouldn't, the attraction to David was too powerful to resist. They began exchanging longer glances, subtler smiles, and soon after, secret meetings started to take place. At first, they were just quick lunches after work, but gradually those encounters turned into long evenings in luxurious hotels outside of town. The passion between them, initially fleeting, quickly developed into a thrilling and dangerous affair. Every time they met, both knew they were walking on a knife's edge, but the excitement of hiding, of deception, only seemed to fuel their emotions even more. Sophia and David knew they were playing a dangerous game, but each time they swore they would stop, they found themselves drawn deeper, unable to break free. It was this blind passion that led them to the brink of dark decisions, decisions from which they could never turn back. Mia Garcia, once a gentle wife and devoted homemaker, never imagined she would be caught in the whirlwind of betrayal. But when the signs began to surface, David coming home late, the secretive phone calls, and his evasive glances, she couldn't help but suspect something was wrong. One day, while checking her husband's phone, Mia uncovered intimate messages between David and Sophia. Her heart shattered, and from that moment, a fire of rage began to burn inside her. Mia didn't just feel betrayed, she felt humiliated. She had once believed David was everything, the perfect man she had trusted for so many years, but now everything had fallen apart. The anger, the hurt, and the pain transformed Mia from a gentle woman into someone driven by a thirst for revenge. However, Mia wasn't the type to act impulsively. She meticulously planned, step by step. She decided that both Sophia and William, who had unwittingly been pulled into this dangerous game, had to pay. William, though innocent in Mia's eyes, represented the remnants of the life she despised, the life that had been ruined by betrayal. Mia silently gathered information, tracking every move her husband and Sophia made. She carefully planned, ensuring that her strategy would be flawless. Leaving no trace that could lead back to her, Mia knew that focusing solely on David wouldn't be enough to soothe the pain inside her. She wanted both betrayers to pay, and William, who had done nothing to protect his marriage, had to suffer as well. With determination and hatred in her heart, Mia set her plan in motion. She knew that once she started, there would be no turning back. But that didn't matter to her anymore. The only thing Mia wanted now was justice, even if it had to be paid for in blood and tears. That night, The sky over Darkwood was covered in thick black clouds, with the wind howling through the cracks in the doors and thunder booming as if it wanted to tear apart the silence. In a state of turmoil, Sophia drove through the pouring rain, heading to William's house. She knew she couldn't continue living in deceit anymore. The guilt had weighed heavily on her for too long, and now she had to confront the truth. When Sophia entered the house, her clothes soaking wet, she saw William sitting on the couch, his cold gaze fixed on her. Without a word, Sophia knew that William had sensed something was wrong. Gathering all her courage, she walked closer and confessed to her affair with David. Each word she spoke felt like a dagger stabbing into William's heart, and when she finished, a deadly silence filled the room. William stood up, his eyes burning with anger and pain. He couldn't believe that the woman he had loved for so many years had betrayed him. The two of them erupted into a heated argument, where all the repressed emotions, anger, and frustration came bursting out. Bitter words, accusations, and recriminations flew back and forth like blows aimed at each other. As the tension reached its peak, William, unable to control himself, slammed his hand on the table, shattering a glass. The shards flew in all directions, and a small fragment accidentally cut Sophia's hand, startling her. Seeing the blood, William froze, realizing in that moment that he had gone too far. In that fleeting instant, they both realized that they had crossed a line from which there was no return. Sophia, trembling and terrified, hurriedly fled the house, leaving William behind in a state of chaos and heartbreak. Little did she know, in that very moment, the door to tragedy had swung open. As she stepped out, she was unaware that someone else, with a sinister intent, was lurking in the shadows, ready to enact their plan for revenge. The sky over Darkwood continued to roar, as if signaling a fateful night where all secrets would be laid bare under the storm's glare. As soon as Sophia left William's house, Mia Garcia quietly followed. The heavy rain concealed every sound, providing the perfect cover for Mia to carry out her vengeance. Her heart pounded, not out of fear, but because her fury had surpassed all other emotions. She knew this was her only chance to exact revenge for the painful betrayal David and Sophia had inflicted on her. When she reached William's front door, Mia paused, listening to the sounds inside. She realized William was alone, and this was the moment to act. With cold-hearted cruelty, Mia gently pushed the door open, stepping into the house where only minutes before, a fierce argument had echoed through the walls. William, still stunned from his confrontation with Sophia, didn't notice Mia's presence until it was too late. In her hand was the dagger David had once given her, a token of love that had now become the instrument of vengeance. Silently, Mia approached William, and with all the hatred she had been harboring, she raised the knife. William turned just in time to see the murderous rage in Mia's eyes before the blade plunged into his chest. His scream was drowned out by the storm outside, and in her uncontrollable fury, Mia stabbed him repeatedly, each thrust of the knife unleashing the pain she had endured. William collapsed to the floor, blood spilling everywhere, but Mia didn't stop until his body lay completely still. Breathing heavily, Mia stood up, gazing down at William's lifeless body with empty eyes. She knew she had passed the point of no return, but the satisfaction she expected didn't come. Instead, there was only emptiness and coldness. Yet, Mia knew her task wasn't over. She carefully placed the dagger next to William's body, deliberately leaving David's fingerprints on the handle. She staged the scene to make it look like a struggle. With Sophia and David as the prime suspects, Mia left the house in the rainy night, feeling pleased with her perfect plan, confident that both Sophia and David would pay for what they had done. The storm outside continued to roar, mirroring the chaos within Mia's soul. But to her, this storm was just the beginning of the revenge she had long been planning. The next morning, when the storm had passed, Darkwood seemed to return to its usual peaceful appearance. However, this was just on the surface. Robert Williams, the Jones family's neighbor, began his day as usual. While tending to his garden, he noticed that William's front door was slightly open. This struck him as odd, as William always made sure to lock up each night. Curiosity drove Robert closer. As he stepped into the house, Robert was stunned by the horrifying sight. William lay motionless on the living room floor. Surrounded by dried bloodstains, Robert's heart nearly stopped. He immediately called the police, his voice trembling, struggling to stay calm as he reported the incident. Sheriff James Smith and Detective John Johnson, both seasoned in handling cases in Darkwood, quickly arrived at the scene. William's home, once a place of peace, had now become the site of a brutal murder. James Smith stood over William's body, his eyes scanning every detail, while John Johnson, deep in thought, carefully observed every trace around him. William's body had been stabbed multiple times, clearly the result of a violent, hate-filled attack. The dagger lay beside his body, blood still clinging to the blade. From the very start, both James and John recognized that this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment killing, but rather one that had been meticulously planned. James crouched down, examining the dagger closely, realizing it wasn't an ordinary weapon. "It seems like the killer wanted to send a message," John said gravely. "This dagger isn't something you can easily find. It could be an important clue." Both detectives began searching the house, looking for other suspicious traces. All the initial signs pointed to a struggle. The windows hadn't been forced open, indicating there were no signs of an intruder from the outside. The only question left was, who entered William's house on that stormy night and carried out such a ruthless act? James quickly ordered the crime scene to be sealed off and called in forensic experts to analyze every fingerprint, footprint, and other pieces of evidence. For James and John, this case was more than just a simple murder. It held many hidden mysteries. Both knew that this was only the beginning, and much remained to be uncovered in this dark story. During the investigation, the police quickly identified the dagger as a key piece of evidence. John Johnson, with his keen eyes, had noticed from the beginning that this wasn't a random weapon. Upon closer inspection, he found a small engraving on the handle, a symbol that only someone familiar with the object would recognize. It was a symbol that David Garcia, a well-known lawyer, often used as a personal mark. This immediately raised suspicions for Sheriff James Smith and Detective John Johnson regarding David Garcia's connection to the case. They quickly delved into David's background and discovered that he wasn't just a prominent lawyer in the town, but also had a close relationship with Sophia Jones, William's wife. The link between David and Sophia, combined with the discovery of David's dagger at the scene, made them both prime suspects. James Smith decided to summon David and Sophia for questioning. Before heading to their homes, he and John discussed the situation. If David is the mastermind, he could have used his relationship with Sophia to carry out this plan. As for Sophia, she might have been caught up in it out of emotion or coercion. Either way, both of them have motive and opportunity, John noted. Sophia was taken into custody shortly after the police approached her. She couldn't hide her panic as she was led to the station. During interrogation, Sophia repeatedly insisted on her innocence, claiming that she had only gone to see William to confess about her relationship with David and knew nothing about his murder. However, her explanations were not enough to convince the police, as all the initial evidence seemed to point against her. David Garcia was also brought in for questioning. When faced with questions about the dagger, David turned pale. He admitted that the dagger was indeed his, but claimed he had no idea when it went missing or how it ended up at the crime scene. Despite this, the nervousness in David's eyes only reinforced the investigators' belief that he was hiding something. With all the clues pointing towards David and Sophia, the police had no choice but to hold both of them for further investigation. The town of Darkwood, once peaceful and prosperous, was now shrouded in rumors and suspicion. The townspeople began to wonder if a dark love story and a horrific crime were lurking behind the perfect facade of the Jones family. Harper Rodriguez, a private investigator with many years of experience, had been hired by Mia Garcia long ago to monitor her husband, David. However, Harper's professional instincts led him not to stop at simply observing David. He began to sense something unusual in Mia's behavior, which led him to expand his investigation, unbeknownst to Mia. On that fateful night, Harper never took his eyes off William's house. He silently documented the actions of everyone involved, from the moment Sophia left to when Mia sneaked into William's home under the cover of darkness. With his keen awareness and caution, Harper secretly recorded the entire scene as Mia left the crime scene after executing her revenge plan. The video that Harper collected was undeniable evidence. In the footage, Mia appeared clearly, looking rushed and tense as she left William's house just minutes after Sophia had departed. Although the video didn't capture the actual crime, Mia's mere presence at the scene right after William's murder was enough to raise Harper's suspicions. But the video wasn't the only key discovery. During his investigation, Harper uncovered something crucial: faint fingerprints on the dagger's handle, something the police had initially overlooked. With his experience, Harper knew these fingerprints could unravel the entire case. Harper decided to contact Sheriff James Smith, providing him with the video and information about the fingerprints. When James and Detective John Johnson reviewed the footage, they immediately realized that Mia might be the missing piece in this complex crime. They began to see that things were not as simple as they initially thought, and Mia Garcia, once considered the victim of betrayal, could very well be the mastermind behind it all. With this new evidence, the police decided to dig deeper into Mia's whereabouts that night. The initial suspicions about David and Sophia gradually shifted, and Mia Garcia, someone no one expected, now became the focus of the investigation. As more secrets were uncovered, the crime story in Darkwood took an entirely different turn, where the villain was no longer the passionate lovers, but a wife filled with deep-seated hatred. Armed with the new findings, Sheriff James Smith and Detective John Johnson decided to summon Mia Garcia for another round of questioning. This time, there would be no soft approach or roundabout questions. They knew Mia was the final piece of this puzzle, and with Harper's video and the fingerprints on the dagger, they had enough reason to believe Mia was the mastermind. Mia entered the interrogation room, trying to remain calm, but the anxiety in her eyes was impossible to hide. James began the questioning by showing her the video Harper had recorded. "How do you explain your presence at William's house right after Sophia left?" James asked, his tone stern. Mia was silent, trying to come up with a plausible reason, but every argument she thought of became futile as James continued his relentless questioning, making her feel cornered. The pressure from the interrogation, coupled with the undeniable evidence, gradually wore Mia down. John Johnson, with an understanding look, gazed directly at Mia and said, "We know you've been through a lot, but this is your only chance to tell the truth. The evidence is clear, and if you want a less painful ending, now is the time to confess." Mia, pushed to the brink of her endurance, finally couldn't hold back anymore. She burst into tears, her sobs echoing in the silent room. "Yes, it was me," she said, her voice breaking. "I killed William. I couldn't bear to see myself betrayed by the two people I trusted the most." Mia confessed that after discovering David and Sophia's affair, She was consumed by hatred. She didn't just want to take revenge on David, but also wanted to punish Sophia and William, who was unwittingly drawn into the game. Mia decided that the best way to execute her plan was to kill William and frame the two people she hated the most. She had meticulously planned, using the dagger David had given her to create fake evidence, setting everything up so that the police would believe Sophia and David had killed William together to continue their affair. Mia admitted that she had deliberately left David's fingerprints on the dagger and appeared at the scene at the right time to shift all suspicion onto them. James and John quietly listened to Mia's full confession. Hatred had driven her to the point of losing control, leading her to act ruthlessly and deceive the entire town. But in the end, the truth had come to light, and Mia now had to face the horrific consequences she had brought upon herself. After Mia confessed to the crime, the story seemed to have reached its conclusion. But a new surprise emerged. Evelyn Taylor, a mysterious woman who had recently moved to Darkwood, suddenly contacted the police, requesting to meet privately with Sheriff James Smith. With a calm and confident demeanor, Evelyn sat across from James in the interrogation room, prepared to reveal a truth no one expected. Evelyn began her story with a cold, emotionless voice. "I knew what Mia was going to do before she even carried out her plan," Evelyn said, her piercing gaze fixed on James. "And I know better than anyone the pain and hatred she's going through." James frowned, unsure how Evelyn was connected to the case. "What are you saying? How are you involved in Mia's plan?" Evelyn gave a mysterious smile. She explained that years ago, she had a deep relationship with David Garcia long before he met Mia. But when Mia entered David's life, he cruelly abandoned Evelyn, leaving her in a state of despair and heartache. After leaving Darkwood, Evelyn had tried to forget the past, but the pain never truly went away. When Evelyn heard that David and Mia had moved to Darkwood, she decided to return to the town to carry out her own plan for revenge. Evelyn quietly watched Mia, fully aware of what she was going through and the plan she intended to execute. Instead of stopping her, Evelyn decided to make things more complicated. She wanted Mia to not only endure the pain of betrayal, but also face the failure of having her plan exposed. Evelyn had secretly interfered with the case by hiding critical evidence, making it harder for the police to identify the true culprit. She had erased several clues that could have directly led to Mia, prolonging the investigation and creating more doubt about Sophia and David. Evelyn wanted Mia to live in fear and anxiety, never knowing when the truth would come to light. Evelyn's revelations left James stunned. She wasn't just an outsider to the case, but was, in fact, part of this intricate game. Driven by her own personal vendetta, James realized that the Darkwood case wasn't just a story of love, betrayal, and murder. It was also about long-held grudges and deep-seated pain buried in the past. Evelyn ended her story with a faint smile. "I don't regret what I did," she said. "Mia destroyed my life, and now she has to pay. I just made her experience a small part of the despair I went through." James understood that Evelyn was also a victim of this cruel game, but she had chosen the path of revenge, becoming part of the tragedy that Darkwood now bore. This case, which seemed to have been closed, had opened up a new, darker, and more complex chapter where no one was truly innocent. After all the truths were revealed, Mia Garcia's trial quickly followed, drawing the attention of the entire town of Darkwood. At court, Mia appeared pale, no longer able to maintain the composure she once had. She now had to face the horrific consequences of her actions. During the trial, the evidence against Mia was laid out clearly and irrefutably. The video recorded by Harper Rodriguez, Mia's fingerprints on the dagger, and most notably, Mia's own confession during the interrogation. All of it pointed to one conclusion. Mia Garcia had deliberately planned William Jones's murder as an act of revenge for her husband's betrayal. Mia's defense attorney tried to present mitigating circumstances, arguing that she had been driven to the edge of despair by David and Sophia's actions, that she wasn't inherently a murderer, but a victim of circumstance. However, the jury remained unconvinced Mia's crime was too evident and too cruel to be forgiven. In the end, the court sentenced Mia Garcia to life in prison without the possibility of parole for premeditated murder. This sentence not only reflected the severity of the law, but also served as punishment for the ruthless actions Mia had committed. She would spend the rest of her life behind bars, facing the pain and regret she had brought upon herself. As for David Garcia, although he wasn't directly involved in the murder, the scandal completely destroyed his life and career. The truth about David's affair with Sophia was exposed to the public, causing him to lose all credibility and trust within the community. His clients withdrew one by one, business partners distanced themselves, and no one wanted to be associated with a lawyer tainted by such a ruthless case. David was forced to leave Darkwood, carrying with him shame and regret. From a talented young lawyer with a promising future, he became a pariah, shunned by society. His betrayal not only destroyed his own marriage, but also turned the lives of many others upside down. With all the irrefutable evidence, the court didn't take long to deliver the verdict for Mia Garcia. The truth about her cruel murder plot had been laid bare before the public, and no one in the town of Darkwood doubted her guilt anymore. Mia Garcia was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole for premeditated murder, hoping to start over. With Mia Garcia's confession, Sophia Jones was released. Although she wasn't convicted of murder, Sophia still had to face the reality that she had played a role in this tragedy. Her life became lonely and hollow. Every time she stepped outside, she felt the cold distance from those around her. Sophia chose to live in seclusion, withdrawing from the friends and family she once knew. She imprisoned herself in her empty home, living quietly, enduring the pain and regret. She knew she couldn't escape the past, and that her life would never be the same again. The town of Darkwood, once a symbol of peace and prosperity, was now engulfed in gossip and suspicion. The case left a lasting mark not only on the lives of those directly involved, but on the entire community. The story of Mia, David, and Sophia became a cautionary tale about the destructive power of betrayal, hatred, and wrong decisions. Those who once stood at the pinnacle of admiration were now mere shadows, haunted by their past, unable to escape the consequences they had brought upon themselves. Our story ends here today. What do you think about this case? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below the video. If you enjoyed it, give us a like, share it, and help us stay motivated to create more videos. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, and see you next time.